the yard when I saw her name in my inbox, Natalie. No subject line, just my name. I figured it was about the florist or the final RSVP list. Her wedding was 6 weeks out. I'd been covering most of it. Deposits, fittings, even her first-class ticket to Florence. So I opened it without thinking. Dad, after talking with Brendan and his parents, we decided it's best if you don't come to the ceremony. We'll send a link so you can watch. It'll be basically the same. No, I love you. No, I'm sorry, just that. Like she was confirming a hotel reservation. Before I could even finish reading it, my phone vibrated. A text from Lorraine Everett, Brendan's mother. We're keeping it intimate. Please respect our wishes. You can follow along by stream or even Google Maps. She added a heart emoji, like that softened anything. I didn't respond. I didn't call. I sat there in my kitchen, the laminate floor cold under my feet, the neighbor's dumb cat scratching at the door like it did every morning. I stared at the screen for maybe 10 seconds, then typed 2 words. Understood. M. That was it. No drama, no begging, no chase. Not even a full minute later, voice notes started pinging through. 4 in a row. All from Natalie. Her voice cracked and rushed like she'd been holding back tears since she hit send. Dad, please don't be mad. They're insisting. I didn't want this. I want you there, I do. Please don't hate me. I'm trying to make everyone happy. I didn't play the last one. I flipped the phone face down. Before we start, tell us which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. I stared out the kitchen window at the empty driveway. Kelsey would have parked her old Subaru right there. She'd been gone 8 years, and still I could see her, barefoot with her coffee, yelling at Shane to slow down as he peeled out on his skateboard. She was the glue back then. When she died, I didn't fall apart. I just hardened up. I took a breath, stood up, and fed the neighbor's cat. Stupid thing rubbed against my shin like it knew something was wrong. I poured out dry food, gave it a half-assed pat, and went to get dressed. I'd already wired money for the dress, the venue deposit, her bachelorette flights. The final wire, $50,000, was scheduled to go out that morning. It was supposed to cover the caterer and hotel balance. Natalie had cried happy tears when I first offered it. Now I was being told to sit quietly behind a screen while they toasted each other in Florence. I didn't rant, didn't curse. I just changed into a clean shirt, ran a comb through my hair, and headed out like always. But I made one decision right there at the sink. Coffee still sitting cold in the mug Kelsey gave me our last Christmas. If my presence was negotiable, then my money sure as hell was too. And I was done negotiating. I pulled into the Prairie First Bank lot at 8:55 sharp. The same spot I always took, second from the end, out of habit more than preference. The place was quiet, barely stirring yet. That early, it was mostly retirees and construction guys lining up for deposits or change orders. I walked in and caught Ruben before he hit his second cup of coffee. He looked up and smiled like always. Marshall. Cold one this morning, I nodded. Need to cancel a wire. Goes out at 10:30 to a hotel in Florence. He raised his eyebrows, tapped the keyboard a couple times, and pulled up the transaction. You're in the window. I can stop it. You sure about this? It's a big one. I looked him in the eye. I'm sure. Something about how my voice came out surprised me. No shake, no heat, just settled, like something had locked into place. He paused, then said, All right, done. Wires canceled. He turned the screen toward me so I could see it, just in case. One other thing, I said. I want to open a revocable trust. Call it Olive Branch Education Trust. Beneficiaries are future grandchildren. None yet, but I'm playing the long game. Seed it with that same 50. He blinked, leaned back slightly. Whole amount. Every cent. Ruben nodded like he'd seen this kind of moment before. Someone pulling out of a bad investment, someone tired of paying for someone else's playbook. He didn't ask questions. We filled out the paperwork right there. I signed it all. No shaky hands. No second thoughts. We printed off a clean set of docs, and I slipped them into the glove box of my truck. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished. Out in the parking lot, I sat with the engine running and drafted an email to Judy Park, the planner, straight to the point. As of 9:12 a.m. Central Standard Time, I am no longer funding the March 14th event. Please remove me from vendor communications. Kindly confirm receipt. Then I added one more for the record. You've barred Natalie from discussing guests with me. She's wedged between you and Brendan. If there are restrictions, put them in writing. That was the truth, and I wanted it in black and white. I pulled into the yard at 9:30, clocked in, and hung up my vest. Harold, my boss, was waiting by the break room door with 2 coffees, one of them already opened. He looked me over once and said, "You look like you swallowed a nail." I gave him the short version, just the headlines. No names, no pity, just the facts. He didn't ask for more. He handed me the coffee and said, "Do it clean. Do it once." Then he walked off like nothing needed more explanation. By noon, my inbox chimed. Judy again. Payment failed. We need replacement funds by EOD Florence time or we lose the slot. There it was. First real crack in the Everett's grip. They'd strutted around like they held the reins, but now the horse had stopped moving. I let it sit for 5 minutes before forwarding it to everyone. Natalie, Brendan, Judy, and Brendan's parents. One thread, one truth, another buzz. This time a text. From William Everett. Marshall, let's be reasonable. Don't punish the kids. We can discuss your attendance later if you reinstate the wire I stared at it. That word, punish, burned hotter than anything else so far. Like my absence was the crime, not their choices. I typed back, no negotiation, handle your end. Nothing more. I hit send and screen locked it. I went back to checking supplies and marking the next shift's pull list. My phone kept buzzing, but I didn't pick it up. I saved everything. Emails, texts, timestamps, notes. People like the Everetts are used to noise. They think if you stay quiet, you're weak. But facts are silent, and that's what makes them dangerous. A few guys were joking in the brake trailer when I walked by. One of them asked if I wanted in on the pot for Sunday's game. I told him no thanks and kept moving. Because this wasn't about feelings anymore. I wasn't nursing hurt pride or trying to make a scene. That's what people like William and Lorraine expect you to do. Lash out. Look unstable. Prove them right. I wasn't giving them that. I was building a paper wall around myself so clean and straight they couldn't punch through it without showing their own cracks. That's what you do when someone turns your love into leverage. You get quiet and make everything you do traceable. Because facts make people uncomfortable when they've been relying on pressure. And pressure only works if the other person bends. I was done bending. I watched a forklift back into the gravel pile and thought about Natalie as a little kid, dressed like a Disney princess, stomping around the front yard with a plastic sword yelling at Shane to stop touching her sidewalk chalk. She'd been fearless back then. Lately, she'd sounded like someone always looking sideways before she spoke. That's not who I raised. So if this shook her, good. Maybe it'd shake her awake. By the time I checked my phone again, the thread had gone dead. No more follow-ups, no more sweet-voiced begging. Just silence. But silence can't erase what's already on paper. I was sitting in the brake trailer, finishing a takeoff sheet, and wolfing down a gas station burrito that tasted like regret when I noticed my phone had blown up again. 13 missed calls from Natalie, 3 from Brendan, 2 from a number I didn't recognize. Probably Lorraine using a different line, thinking I'd bite. I didn't answer any of them. I wasn't in the mood to play customer service for people trying to airbrush me out of my own daughter's wedding. At 3:07 p.m., the screen lit up with a call from Brendan. This time, he didn't hide behind text. "Hey, Mr. Carvin," he started, using that polite, fake, calm voice people use when they're already losing. "We're figuring it out. Mom's just very particular about headcount and optics. I'll make sure you're included somehow. Just, can you resend the funds so we don't lose vendors?" I swallowed my last bite and leaned back on the bench. Brendan, my attendance isn't for sale. Stand up or don't. But don't sell me a promise you can't keep. There was a pause on the other end. Long enough I heard him exhale. I'll talk to them, he mumbled, and the line went dead. That was always Brendan's move. He'd toss the problem in the air and hope someone else would catch it before it hit the ground. After my shift, I got home and saw Shane sitting on the top step of the porch, backpack half-zipped, earphones hanging out of his pocket. He looked up at me like he was bracing for impact. "Nats is melting down," he said. "She thinks you're blowing this up to prove a point." I opened the door, let him in, and poured him a cold Dr. Pepper like I always did when he came over after class. "I love your sister," I told him, "but I'm not paying to be erased." That's not a point. That's a boundary. He took a swig, then set the can down too hard on the counter. "This sucks. I hate being in the middle." "Then don't be," I said. "Pick reality." She sent the message. They pushed it. This is theirs. He started pacing, hands in his hair. "But don't you think maybe, just maybe, you're a little intimidating? Like, you go silent, and it's like a warning shot." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. "Buddy, I've spent 10 years being the soft landing. Driving, paying, answering at 2 a.m. when no one else would. People mistake soft for weak. And now they're mad I stopped folding." He didn't argue, just leaned on the kitchen counter and stared at the floor like he wanted it to give him answers. The next text came from Brendan. "I'll smooth it out with Mom," followed by another. "Dad says you're being emotional." Then came the kicker, a screenshot of a family group chat. Lorraine, bold as brass, had written, "Marshall is unreliable. He makes things awkward for photos. He always has. It wasn't just a dig. It was a deletion." I didn't hesitate. I typed one sentence back to Brendan. "You want to be a husband or a son?" 15 minutes passed. No reply. That silence said more than anything else. Silence is cowardice when it comes after the truth. I sat in the living room with the lights off and didn't bother with dinner. Around 8, I grabbed the mower and started cutting the yard in the dark with the floodlights on. Half the neighbors probably thought I'd snapped. I didn't care. The sound of the blade drowned out everything. The texts, the calls, the weight in my chest. It didn't fix anything, but it gave my hands something to do besides clenching. After I parked the mower and killed the lights, I stood in the yard for a minute, just breathing. It was quiet in that way only Midwest evenings get. Nothing but crickets and the low hum of someone's AC unit. This whole thing had started like a slow leak. Little dismissals, polite exclusions. Lorraine smiling too wide when I offered to help. Brendan deferring everything to later. And Natalie trying to patch it all with apologies that never had time to land before the next cut. Now the dam was open, and I'd stopped holding it together for people who never once held me in the picture. Back inside, I washed my hands and stared at my phone on the counter, vibrating with another call. This one I ignored too. There's a point where you stop trying to fix people's comfort and let them sit in the mess they made. Not out of spite, just self-respect. That's where I was now. Natalie wanted everyone to be happy, but the people who made the mess were counting on her to clean it up. And Brendan? He wanted to marry her but couldn't stand up for her, or to them. He was playing both ends and hoping I'd blink first. I wasn't blinking. Later that night, I folded laundry just to give myself something to do. My hands needed a job, and my head needed space. When I checked my phone one last time before bed, it was quiet. No new messages. No apologies. Just the same wall of silence from people who didn't like the word no, unless they were the ones saying it. I turned off the porch light and walked to the back window. The mower sat there in the moonlight, half the yard cut, the other half waiting. That felt about right. Sometimes you don't need to push back, you just stop racing. Remove your shoulder, step aside, and let the weight they're leaning on give out. Let them fall. I was rinsing my coffee mug when Sierra texted. "Can I stop by?" No fluff. No smiley face. Just that. I hadn't seen her much since she moved to Des Moines after college, but she'd spent enough nights on our couch growing up to count as family. I wrote back, "Doors open." 15 minutes later, she walked in carrying a foil-covered casserole dish and a tight look on her face like she'd just come off a shift no one appreciated. She set the dish on the counter, didn't bother taking off her sneakers, and sat at the kitchen table like she never left. She didn't say hi. She just slid her phone across the table. "Group chats," she said, "screenshots. You need to see." I tapped the screen. First thread was between Lorraine and William. "Once Marshall pays, we'll revise the list. Until then, he can stream like the rest of his side." Then another. "We don't need his chaos and photos." I scrolled down. New thread. William to Brendan. "Keep Natalie away from her father this week." He stirs her up. "Finalize the list with me," and Brendan's reply, one word. "Okay." I locked the phone and slid it back. Sierra kept her voice low, like she didn't want the walls to hear. "She's at my place." Crying, trying to keep it together. Keeps saying she loves you, but she doesn't know how to fight them. She begged Brendan to step up. He keeps saying, "Later." I opened the drawer by the fridge, pulled out the trust paperwork, and set it down in front of her. 50 grand for school, I said. Not for showtime. If someone doesn't like it, that's their weather. I'm walking in mine just fine. Sierra looked at the paperwork like it was sacred. She didn't touch it. Just smiled, sad but proud. "She'll understand this one day," she said. My laptop chimed behind me. I flipped it open and saw an email from Judy, the planner. "Escalating. The hotel released the ballroom hold. I'm sorry. Need immediate payment to rebook, no apology. No delay. Just another reminder that their whole circus was built on money they thought I'd keep sending." I hit forward. Sent it to the full group. Natalie, Brendan, both parents. I added one line. "This is what control costs." Sierra stood up, walked around the table, and squeezed my hand. "They painted you as unpredictable," she said. "But you're the only one doing exactly what you said you'd do." I nodded, then told her the one thing I hadn't told anyone. When Kelsey got her diagnosis, I said, she wrote letters. One for Shane, one for Natalie. I've had them sealed for 8 years. Never opened. If this gets worse, if Natalie starts thinking love means surrender, I'll give her that letter. Not as a weapon, just as a light. Sierra blinked hard, didn't speak for a second. Then she said, "Lorraine can manage a guest list, but she can't fight a mother's voice." She pulled the foil casserole toward her and gave me a soft smile. "Tuna bake. Don't insult it till you try it." I nodded. "Appreciate it." As she packed up to leave, she paused in the doorway. "I'll be there," she said, when she cracks the door open. I'll be right behind her. I watched her leave, and the house fell silent again. I sat down at the kitchen table, hands flat, and stared at the trust documents. I didn't feel victorious. I felt like someone patching holes in a boat they didn't poke. That night, I opened the envelope with Kelsey's handwriting on it, just to look at it, not to read it, just to remember it existed. Her cursive was tight and neat, same way she used to label the kids' lunchboxes in grade school. She always said words mattered most when they were written down. Around 9, Shane texted me a meme of a cat holding a knife and said, "I feel like this at all family events lately." It made me laugh harder than it should have. But underneath that joke was a truth. We were all bracing, dodging, sidestepping, and I was done with it. I logged back into my email, reread every message from Judy, Lorraine, and William, and tagged them into a folder called Proof. No need to argue if you keep receipts. 10 minutes later, another message landed. Judy again. Still no replacement funds. Venue requesting final answer by tomorrow morning. That's when I saw it clearly. They'd never actually had a backup plan. They assumed I'd cave once things got real. Once dresses were tailored and flights were booked. They thought I'd put pride aside and pay for the privilege of being tolerated. But facts don't beg. They sit there, unmoving, until people finally deal with them. And if Brendan and Natalie couldn't face those facts now, better they learn here than halfway through a marriage built on tiptoeing. I went to the fridge, pulled out a beer, and sat on the porch. The air was cool, the sky clean. For once, I didn't feel pulled in 12 directions. I felt still. The line was drawn, not in sand, not in chalk, in ink, on paper, with receipts. The truth wasn't coming from me anymore. It was coming from their own words, their own decisions, their own silence. And if they wanted to rewrite that story, they were going to have to start with their own pages. The next morning brought a fresh insult, dressed up like diplomacy. William Everett sent a formal email just after 7 a.m., probably thought catching me early would make me softer. The subject line said, "Compromise proposal." The body was worse. "We're prepared to invite you to the ceremony only, no reception, if you avoid contact with certain guests. Reinstate the wire and we'll share seating." I read it twice. Then a third time, just to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding. They were offering me a damn balcony seat at my own daughter's wedding, like I was some old dog who couldn't be trusted near the real family. I didn't get mad. I got clear. I typed back 3 lines. No. My seat isn't a line item. Send any further proposals in writing to the kids only. I will not engage. Then I took that same message and forwarded it to Judy, the planner, with a new note. Please document vendor changes under new payer, William Everett. That was leverage, not yelling, just redirecting the invoice. Judy called about 20 minutes later. She sounded like she'd been holding her breath since Monday. "Hi, Marshall. I got your email. I need confirmation. Officially. Who's paying for the Florence event?" I didn't hesitate. "Not me." She was quiet for a second, then sighed into the receiver. "All right, I'll request formal authorization from the Everetts. We'll need to revise every document with a payer change. That includes vendor contracts and insurance coverage." "Then revise it," I said. They wanted control. They get the bill. Paperwork becomes a mirror. People hate what it shows. Right after lunch, my phone buzzed. Brendan. I debated letting it ring out. Picked up anyway. His voice was flat, like someone coming down from a panic high. "They don't want you there," he said, "because they think you'll make it about you." I took a breath and sat down on a concrete step near the truck bay. "Brendan," I said, "I've been invisible since Kelsey died. All I've ever made it about is making sure your fiancé had brakes that worked and groceries in her fridge." He didn't say anything. "Your mom's worried about the photos?" I added. "Yeah," I pressed. "Yours or hers?" Long silence. He didn't answer, but I heard the shift. You could practically hear the gears strip in his head as the truth landed. It always takes a beat longer for boys like him, ones who confuse peacekeeping with maturity. Later that afternoon, Harold found me stacking pallets behind the yard and asked if I'd cover Saturday's safety talk. Ray's wife was going into surgery. I told him, yeah, I'd do it. Then I stopped myself and added, "But I can only do 40 minutes. After that, I've got family meetings." Harold raised his eyebrows and gave me this half smile. "Look at you." "Setting limits. Learning," I said. On the way home, I swung by the post office to grab a package Kelsey's sister sent from Colorado, old baby photos she found in a shoebox. While I was there, the clerk handed me a fancy envelope that smelled like cologne and dust. Heavy paper, gilded edges, one of those fake wax stamps like it was 1820. Return address, William and Lorraine Everett. Embossed crest like they'd founded Rhode Island. Inside it read, "We believe there's been a mix-up. Kindly reinstate your generous pledge so our children won't suffer delays." That word again, misunderstanding. I set the letter on the counter when I got home, didn't even take off my boots before I sat down and wrote a reply. "Thank you for your note. The misunderstanding is over. For clarity, formal invites without my name are declined. That is my final word. Sent it by email, same address. No ceremony, no call, no stamp. If they wanted formal, they could choke on it. At 5:22 p.m., I got one more twist. A gift, really. Judy accidentally CC'd me on a planner thread, probably muscle memory from all the original bookings. It was a conversation between her and Lorraine. Clear as day, Lorraine had written. If possible, leave Marshall's name off all printed materials, so as not to confuse our side. I sat there, reading it again with my mouth half open. Not remove or exclude or even decline attendance. No, don't confuse our side, like my existence was bad optics. I didn't rage. I didn't reply all. I opened a new email and sent the CC directly to Natalie. No header, no comment. Just 2 words in the body. For you. No lecture, no guilt trip, just a mirror. 15 minutes later, I got a voice note from her. No crying this time. No excuses, just a shaky breath and one word, whispered like she was trying not to break something inside her throat. Dad. That was it. Just Dad. No script, no spin, no rescue request. It felt like the first honest thing I'd heard from her since the whole damn wedding started. I didn't reply. Not right away. I put my phone down, made dinner, eggs and toast, and ate at the kitchen table with the windows open. The evening breeze felt clean, honest, like something had finally shifted. I wasn't asking for a fight. I wasn't throwing punches. I just stopped being the one to hold up the tent poles while everyone else danced underneath. They'd tried to erase me, soften me, dress me up like a donor and keep me quiet in the shadows. But I'd stopped funding the lie, and now they were tripping over their own edits. Brendan knocked like a man delivering bad news to a neighbor he barely knew. 3 soft taps, pause, then 2 more like he hoped I wasn't home. I opened the door. He stood there holding a plastic grocery bag, looking like hell. His collar was wrinkled, hair damp like he'd sweated through a shower, and his eyes were heavy in a way I'd only ever seen after funerals. "They'll let you come," he said, not even trying to smile. "If you agree to arrive late and leave right after the vows." That's the compromise. He didn't say who they were. He didn't have to. I stepped aside and held the door open. No welcome, just space. He hesitated, then walked in like he was crossing into court. On the dining table, I'd already laid it all out. Wire cancellation confirmation, trust documents, printed emails from Judy, the letter from Lorraine, and even the planner thread where they tried to scrub my name off the program. He stopped 2 steps in and froze. It hit him all at once, like he'd just walked into a crime scene and realized he knew the victim. "I don't want to fight," he said, voice low. "I just want peace." I stepped closer. Peace without truth is cover. I'm not doing cover. He didn't respond. I pointed to the email from Judy where she confirmed Natalie had been barred from discussing guests with me. "Your folks decided who gets to be visible." "That's not peace, Brendan. That's image control." He looked down at the bag in his hands like he forgot it was there. Something boxed and sweating inside. He rubbed his face. "Mom says you make her feel judged." I shrugged. Maybe she should check a mirror. "I'm not judging. I'm opting out." He slumped into the nearest chair like his legs gave out. His shoulders curled in on themselves. He looked like a boy again, overwhelmed, under-equipped. Mid-conversation, my phone lit up. Natalie. I answered and put it on speaker. "Dad," she said, voice completely shredded. "I'm so sorry. I keep trying, but I can't seem to make anyone happy. Not them, not you." "You don't have to," I said. "You just have to be a grown woman and choose. I'll love you either way." But the indecision isn't neutral, it's a vote. She didn't reply, but I could hear her breathing, trying not to fall apart. I ended the call with a tap. Brendan didn't lift his head. "If I push back," he said finally, "they'll cut us off. Financially, socially, I know how they operate. I tapped the trust folder on the table. Looks like you weren't funded by them anyway. That one hit. I saw it land behind his eyes. For the first time, he realized where the weight had actually come from. He leaned forward, hands gripping the sides of the chair. They think I'm weak. I didn't argue. I didn't lie. William's name popped up on my phone, another text. I opened it with one hand and read it aloud. Final offer. You stream the ceremony and we'll seat Shane in the back. I typed one word. No. Then I powered the phone down and set it aside. Brendan blinked slowly, like he was seeing a version of himself he didn't recognize. Standing in my entryway, he looked younger than his 26 years, smaller, softer, hollowed out from trying to belong to people who only loved him on their terms. I don't want to be this man, he said. I leaned against the counter. Then don't. There's no ribbon for most obedient. He didn't respond, just sat there breathing in the silence like he was trying to survive it. I walked over to the sink and washed 2 plates I didn't need to wash, left over from lunch. Scrubbing helped me think. Wiping them dry helped me not explode. Brendan stood, glanced at the documents again, then at me. You really won't come? He asked. Not as a guest in my own family, I said. That line got poured. They knew what they were doing. He turned toward the door. What if she asks you again? What if she begs? I didn't move. Then she'll have to decide what kind of life she wants to start. One built on silence, or one built on truth. He left with nothing to say. I didn't walk him out. The second the door shut, I leaned on the kitchen counter and stared at the fridge like it owed me an answer. My hands gripped the edge so hard my knuckles ached. But I didn't move. That line between presence and performance, it was in concrete now, and nobody was going to trip over it by accident. I checked the living room clock, just after 7. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel bitter. What I felt was settled. Settling doesn't mean calm. It means something stopped moving. I put the trust documents back in their folder and tucked them away in the fireproof box where I kept the kids' birth certificates and Kelsey's death certificate, right next to each other, like bookends. As I was locking it, I remembered something Kelsey once said on one of the bad hospital nights when Natalie had fallen asleep in the corner chair and Shane was pretending not to cry in the hallway. She looked at me with that tired smile and said, "You hold the line, Marsh." Even when they don't understand it yet, that's what dads do. They hold the damn line. I hadn't thought about that moment in years, not until now. The phone stayed powered down for the rest of the night. No updates, no backpedaling, no fake reconciliation. I didn't want a seat they felt obligated to hand out like a favor, and I sure as hell wasn't going to rent one with blood money. If they needed someone quiet in the photos, they could crop me out. But my kids? They weren't raised to forget who built the floor under their feet. The house felt still, not peaceful, just quiet. I turned off the porch light, sat in the dark for a while, and let the line I'd drawn harden into what it had always needed to be. Undeniable. The next morning, before the coffee maker even started gurgling, I heard the front door open like it had every right to. No knock, no call ahead. Just the sound of keys in the bowl and quiet steps on the wood floor. Natalie came in wearing Shane's old hoodie, sleeves too long, drawstring chewed, and her hair yanked back in a crooked ponytail like she hadn't slept or hadn't cared. She walked straight to me and hugged me so hard I had to steady myself against the counter. "Dad," she said into my chest, voice low and wrecked. "You did the right thing. I loved you then too. I just didn't know how to choose it." I didn't answer right away, just held her while the kitchen filled with that early morning silence that wraps around real things. Her arms didn't let go for a while, and I didn't move to pull back. We sat at the table, the same one where Brendan had stared at the stack of proof like it had teeth. Natalie looked down at the trust papers, fingertips barely touching the edge, like they were a map she was finally learning how to read. She didn't ask for anything. Just sat there like the exhaustion had finally caught up. "We're done trying to fix their party," she said after a minute. "We're signing on our own. Florence, no banquet, no vendors, just the paperwork." I nodded slowly, letting her words land fully. "Sierra's coming as a witness," she added, "and Brendan's buddy Caleb's going to shoot photos on his phone." "It'll be enough." "It's more than enough," I said. "That's a marriage, not a press release." Right then, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and smiled, like she finally didn't have to brace. She handed it to me. "Brendan." "Put him on speaker," I said. She did. "Hey, Mr. Carver," Brendan's voice came through. It didn't have the usual half smile baked into it. It was grounded, real. "I told them I'm marrying her, not them. I said loving my parents doesn't mean I have to live their life." He sounded older than the kid who first came around with his nervous laugh and always one hand on his phone. Natalie looked at me like she was seeing him for the first time. I said, "Good. That's a spine." Brendan laughed, short and flat. "Took long enough, huh?" We started checking flights right there at the table. Natalie leaned over my shoulder while I scrolled. She pointed to the cheapest one with the most terrible layover. I was about to book it when I stopped. "This is yours," I said. "Not mine. I won't be in Italy." She blinked, confused. "But you could. You should. No. You need this to be yours. No shadow, no balancing act. Go start it your way." She hesitated, then nodded. "You sure?" "Absolutely. But I will be your first celebration when you get back. My house. Small circle. Simple food. No show." She smiled like something unclenched in her chest. "Deal." Right after she left, I sat down and wrote Lorraine and William a short note. Polite but pointed. "Appreciate your attempt to clarify. Since you prefer online participation, I'll return the courtesy. You're welcome to watch the ceremony from Italy by stream. We'll send a link." Didn't wait for a reply. Just hit send. Later that afternoon, Shane came by with a container of microwaved spaghetti and that usual half smirk he uses to pretend everything's fine. He saw Natalie on the couch and hugged her, like he'd been carrying the guilt for both of them. "Not always being a mediator is kindness," he said. "Sometimes kindness is picking a side." She nodded into his hoodie sleeve. He didn't make it dramatic, just grabbed a soda from the fridge and sat on the floor like we were back in 08 watching cartoons on Saturday mornings. He offered to help hang lights in the backyard for the dinner when they got back, said it like it was already decided. I told him that's exactly what I wanted. That evening, as I was putting away the stack of wedding emails for good, a message pinged on my old Facebook account. I barely use the thing. Usually it's just old coworkers tagging me in memes from the yard. This one was from Ricky Jennings, a guy I hadn't heard from in 20 years. We'd served together. He was Kelsey's squad leader when she deployed to Vicenza in '99. "Hey Marshall," it said. "Found this going through old junk. Kelsey, 22, Florence, 2000, right before we shipped out." Attached was a photo. She was standing in a cobblestone square, holding a tiny cup of espresso, laughing so hard her eyes were shut, hair wild. One foot slightly lifted like she was about to spin. I printed it out on my home printer and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet from a gas station in Kansas. Crooked, a little grainy, but it was her. And it felt like permission. Not a sign, not a message from the beyond. Just a reminder that Kelsey had lived, had chosen her own way once, and would have wanted Natalie to do the same. And maybe, just maybe, she'd be proud of me for holding the line so the kids could finally see what love looks like when it's not for sale. The house stayed quiet that night, but not empty. For the first time in months, it felt like home again. They flew out on a Thursday afternoon. I watched their flight number tick across the Delta app until it turned green. Departed. 2 carry-ons between them. Nothing checked. Natalie said she didn't want to carry anything she'd regret. Sierra sent a picture from the terminal, her holding a tiny bouquet from the gift shop. It looked like something yanked from a grave vase, but she held it like it mattered. We're doing this right, the caption said. Around midnight my time, Brendan texted me a photo of the Arno River at sunrise, gold light bleeding over the bridge like a postcard. He wrote, "Caught this for you. Looks better in real life." It reminded me of when Shane used to bring me rocks from the schoolyard like they were diamonds. That same voice, "Look what I did, hope you're proud." The next photo came a few hours later. Natalie's message said, "Civil Office, Palazzo Vecchio. No aisle. No music. No white chairs lined up for strangers to clap from. Just a room with sun coming through dusty windows and a wooden table in the middle. One clerk standing to the side like he'd seen too many versions of this to be moved anymore. Her smile in that picture, it was Kelsey's smile. Not just in the shape, but in the way it pulled from something deeper than the moment. Peace, not posing. 2 signatures went on that license. Sierra and Caleb. Sierra, always neat and tidy, used the same heart over the eye that she's been drawing since 6th grade. Caleb, who I hadn't met yet, signed like a man trying to hold down a snake. Brendan wore a gray button-up and a black tie they picked up off a rack from a street vendor. His collar sat crooked in every photo, and I loved that. No tailoring, no dry cleaner, just a man showing up and meaning it. Natalie's dress was soft and plain, off-white with a single row of buttons down the back. No sequins, no train. Nothing like the rhinestone blind thing Lorraine had chosen for her 3 weeks ago. This dress looked like her. Comfortable, sharp in the right places. Not a costume. After the clerk stamped the final page, Brendan sent me a video. Just a few seconds. He was holding the phone sideways, hand shaking a little. You could hear Sierra laughing off screen and Caleb muttering something about his handwriting being a felony. Brendan looked straight into the camera and said, "Hey, Mr. Carver, thank you for helping me be a husband." Then he tried not to cry and laughed instead. The clip cut off right as Natalie stepped into the frame. I watched it sitting in my truck behind the supply yard, heat cranked, sandwich still in the bag. Wiped my face with the back of my wrist and said out loud to no one, "You're welcome, kid." I didn't forward the video to anyone. Some things aren't content. They're earned. The Everetts didn't show. Not a surprise. The email came in at 2:41 a.m. local time, cold, formal, unsigned by hand. Due to scheduling complications and confusion about arrangements, we regret we will not be able to attend the ceremony. Misunderstood. Like I'd tripped on a dress rehearsal and flipped the wrong switch. They didn't call, didn't text Natalie or Brendan directly. Just a line of press release nonsense that covered them like a coat of white paint over mold. I didn't even reply. That afternoon I got a text from Shane, just a screenshot of the live stream link Sierra had set up from her phone. In the still frame before I pressed play, I could see the clerk holding a red stamp, Brendan standing just off center, and Natalie with her hands folded like she was anchoring herself to the floor. I tapped it once and watched. The sound was awful, tinny. You could barely make out the clerk's accent. There was no music, no vows, just the rhythm of translated phrases and the chunk of the stamp hitting paper. That was the music. I didn't cry watching it. Not the kind of tears people expect from dads in commercials. No dramatic moment. Just a slow, steady feeling, like a knot was finally loosening behind my ribs. They didn't need a rented ballroom. They didn't need a menu, or a guest list, or permission slips from people who only loved them when it was filtered. They needed a table, a witness, and each other. And they found all 3. When the video ended, I sat in my truck for a minute longer, engine still running, heat still blasting. Then I turned it off, stepped outside, and took a deep breath that finally felt clean. There were no fireworks, no confetti, just peace. And peace is plenty. They landed late Monday night. I knew the exact flight, but didn't track it. Didn't need to. Natalie had said, "We'll call you from the Uber, not the gate." Don't worry. And I didn't. They timed it just right. Phones off, notifications silenced. No chance for Lorraine or William to intercept with some last-minute plea or guilt-shaped olive branch. That door had already closed, and they were the ones who locked it. Tuesday afternoon, we grilled in my backyard. Nothing fancy. 4 of us total. Me, Natalie, Brendan, and Shane. Sierra came by a little later, holding a pie like it might fall apart in her hands. She hugged all of us like we'd been lost and finally made it home. I strung up the cafe lights Shane and I bought on clearance last spring. One bulb still flickered, but I didn't swap it out. It looked real. We ate on the mismatched plates Kelsey and I picked up from a yard sale in 11. Pink roses, cartoon frogs, and a chipped one with a palm tree no one ever claimed. Nobody cared what anything looked like. The steaks weren't perfect. Mine was a little tough, Brendan's a little rare, but nobody said a word. People forget how sacred silence is when it's earned. Brendan was the first to raise a glass. To making our own house rules, he said. He didn't toast big or loud, just lifted his soda can and nodded once like it was a sentence all on its own. Shane stood too, hands shoved in his pockets. Kindness isn't neutrality, he said. Sometimes it's choosing a side and staying there. Then he sipped his Coke like it was whiskey. I could see the weight shift off Natalie's shoulders when he said that. She reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. Her fingers were cold from the soda can. "Dad," she said, "thank you for not negotiating me." I didn't say anything back, just squeezed her hand and kept looking at the string lights shaking in the breeze. That was enough. After we ate, I went inside and pulled down the big family photo in the hallway. It was taken at the county fair years ago. Me, Kelsey, Shane with a mouthful of cotton candy, and Natalie holding a goldfish in a plastic bag. I swapped the photo out. Took one from the porch we'd snapped an hour earlier. Natalie, Brendan, and Shane sitting on the steps, plates in their laps, all smiling the same tired, relieved kind of smile. I slid it into the frame and hung it back up. Didn't say anything, just did it. About 10 minutes later, Natalie's phone buzzed on the patio table. She picked it up, read the message, and let out a sharp breath through her nose. "Lorraine and William," she said. "Email. No call. Just this." She turned the screen toward me. "We apologize for any hurt caused. We were not properly understood. Not, we were wrong. Not, we're sorry we excluded your father." Just that safe, hollow phrase again. Misunderstood. I nodded. "Want me to dictate your reply?" I asked. "Please," she said, eyes tired but clear. I told her what to write. Received. Thank you. That was hers. Then I stepped inside, pulled up my own email, and typed one short message. "We accept your apology. As you preferred earlier, you're welcome to join, online, the moment you taught us to accept. We'll share a replay link." That last line was sharp, and I meant for it to be. When Brendan read both replies, he didn't puff his chest or smirk or nod like a man who won. He just sat back in his chair, arms crossed, and said, "Loving parents doesn't mean living their life." He said it quiet, like he was still trying it on. But it fit better this time. We cut the pie Sierra brought, graham cracker crust, soft top, too much cinnamon, and passed it around without plates. Just forks and napkins and full bellies. When it was gone, nobody made a speech. Nobody took a photo. We stacked the dishes, flipped off the lights, and let the night be enough. The back gate clicked shut behind Sierra like a period. Not a comma, not an ellipsis, just done. A week later, I was back to packing my lunch like nothing ever happened. Peanut butter sandwich, bag of pretzels, apple. Same red thermos I've used since Shane was in Little League. Routine felt good, solid, uncomplicated. Shane swung by for a tire gauge. I checked his oil just out of habit, didn't even ask first. He handed me a burrito from the place by campus and said, "I got you this, old man," like that made up for the dipstick being dry. I didn't lecture him, just filled it and grunted, "Next time you check it." That night, I left the porch light on without even thinking. Natalie and Brendan came by for taco night. She still wore Shane's hoodie sometimes. Brendan brought a paper bag of avocados and offered to dice them like it was penance. We let him. The three of them talked about apartment hunting and spring classes. I stayed quiet, mostly listening, leaning back in the kitchen chair I'd fixed twice already. The wood still creaked under my weight, but it held. At work, Harold saw me in the lot and said, "You look taller." I said, "I didn't win anything. I just stopped paying for my own erasure." He chuckled, tapped his thermos to mine. "That's a win, buddy." A few days later, a letter came in the mail from the Everetts. Heavy paper, gold trim, return address stamped with the same damn crest. Inside, "We're hopeful for a fresh start." No names, no signatures, no truth. I didn't bother drafting a response. I just mailed back a printed copy of the Olive Branch Education Trust summary with a sticky note that read, "Investing in what lasts." No sermon, no sarcasm, just a receipt. Natalie found me later that night pulling weeds by the fence. She held a small envelope in both hands like it might burn her. "You still want it?" she asked. The letter. From Mom, I stood up, brushed dirt off my knees, looked her in the eye. "Not yet," I said. "Maybe one day when it's a celebration." Not a bandage. She nodded, didn't push. Just walked back inside and left the envelope sealed in the drawer. That same night, Brendan installed a dimmer switch in the hallway. He got the wiring wrong on the first try, flipped the breaker, and we all stood in the dark for a second. He cursed, then laughed, and I laughed with him. 5 minutes later, he got it right. No manual, no phone call to William. That told me more than any apology ever could. After dinner, Shane leaned in the doorway with his arms crossed, watching the lights fade to a soft glow. "You know," he said, "sometimes holding a boundary feels like being mean." Then he paused. This didn't. He was right. It didn't feel mean. It felt like pointing the truck in the right direction and finally taking your foot off the brake. Later that night, when the house went quiet again, I made a cup of coffee and walked the hallway slow. The family photo I'd changed last week caught the light just right. Brendan fit into the frame like he'd been there all along. No edits, no gaps. I stood by the door, watching the square of light the porch lamp cast across the wood floor, and I thought about that first email, the one that told me to watch from a link. I heard myself answer it the same way I did that day. Understood. Only now I meant it different. I understood what I was for. I'm not a wallet. I'm not a favor. I'm not a problem to be managed off camera. I'm a father. And here's how I think about it now, sitting in this quiet house with the light in the window. Love isn't a bill to pay. It's choosing to stand next to someone. My presence isn't purchased. It isn't negotiated. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors, and the handle's on the inside. Tonight, mine are open, for the ones who walk in on their own 2 feet. Final question for you. Where would you draw the line in your own family? Keep the peace or hold the boundary? If your own child let someone else decide whether you belonged at their wedding, would you fight for a seat or step back like I did? Drop a comment, even just good story or your take. If you'd like to support the channel, tap Super Thanks. It's optional but really helps. And please like and subscribe. Huge for us, easy for you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.